Hello and welcome to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Bubba, somebody says we're in episode 40-something.
Are you kidding me?
It might be 240.
Are you kidding me?
I think it might be 44. We're somewhere in that. We're in our 40s now. Not our age, we're in our 50s, but in our podcast world, we're in our 40s. And today is going to be a lot of fun. I know, and we will talk a few serious things, but some of these have been quite serious. Today, we're going to have a blast because we're going to be talking with a comedian, and we welcome him now, Jon Reep. Jon, welcome to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on, man. How you doing?
We're great, and we miss having you in studio coming by every now and then. We always have a lot of fun with you, and, of course, it's a new world out there, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but we're so glad to have you on today.
Hey, I'm tickled pink. I think I reached out to you guys. You know, I got my own podcast, and I'm like, wait a minute. I need to be reaching out to the guys who've been doing this a long time and have a huge audience. So I'm like, I got to contact Rick and Bubba because you guys are in the top 100 in podcasting, and you've only done 44 of them so far.
Well, and Jon, you introduced us. We'll get back to that in a minute. You introduced us to a new term a minute ago, a smash cast, and I like that idea
because you have a podcast, which we're going to talk about today. We have a podcast. We are having you on our podcast, but you just remarkably said, but you could also be on my podcast at the same time.
Yes, I am in my studio right now in Hickory, North Carolina, where we record Country-ish podcast, and we're recording this right now. So I'm going to have a copy. You're going to have a copy. We could just air both on two different channels, and may the best man win. It'll be you.
Well,
but I've never heard the term smash cast.
I like it.
Is that a normal podcast word, or did you invent that?
I made that up about 5 years ago when I was on another comedian's podcast. He said, I want you on my podcast. I said, I want, it's like the Reese's peanut butter cup, chocolate running into peanut butter, two great things happening at the same time.
Right.
And I just came up with Smashcast, and I guess it just stuck.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on my list of things I need to teach my wife that's wanting to do a podcast.
Yeah, because if I recall, there's a version of this with bands. And they'll take, we one of these bands we had on the show, I can't think of their name now, where they'll be doing, a rock song, and then it'll smash into a popular song, and then they smash them both together.
Right.
So now this is the version of that in the podcast world. And Jon, your podcast, Country-ish, are you like us? Do you remember, of course, with the first time you heard someone mentioning podcast, I remember thinking to myself, I don't even want to hear what you're saying. I don't know that I could care less about what you're saying right now. But podcast, we run into our room and we record something, and I'm like, well, who's going to go listen to a podcast? But now, wow, this world.
You're right, 100%. I think I've started and stopped maybe 5 different podcasts over the years because everyone would tell me, like, you got to get one, dude. Every comedian's doing it, and if you're not doing it, you're going to be out of the loop. And so I would do one, and I get excited about it, and because I don't know what I'm doing, it would go nowhere, and I wasn't really doing it correctly. But it's really fighting a battle with my fans who don't even know what a podcast is. And I have to tell, I shot a whole how-to video with my mother, who's 72 years old, about an instructional video about how to get a podcast. And so the number one question is like, well, what is a podcast? I go, well, Mom, it's like a radio show that you can listen to anytime. She goes, cool. I got a radio in my bathroom. Is it AM or FM? No, Mom, it's not. Oh, yeah. So I did this whole video. I really have to educate people my age and up on what it is and why it's fun and how to do it and all that stuff.
Jon, where do you find that at, by the way?
That video? I'll send it to you. Yeah. If you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jon Reep, I believe it's on there. I think it's just called How to Get a Podcast.
Well, let me tell you, they are everywhere now, and we're going to jump right into it and talk about this particular podcast and this whole world that we're living in. Jon Reep is our guest on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. So Jon Reep's our guest. We're talking about his podcast, Country-ish. Now, where did this name come from? You're saying you're country-ish.
Yes, it's true. I mean, a lot of people look at me as the redneck from Hickory. The word hick is right there. Right. I did a lot of Dodge truck commercials as the
the Hemi, baby.
The redneck guy who leaned out of a Dodge truck and just said, that thing got a Hemi. You know, I've done a lot of redneck things in my world, and I kind of am that, but I'm not. But when I moved back home to Hickory, I moved back home about 2 years ago for many reasons. We can get into that. But I soon realized I'm not really that redneck or country because, you know, I was a comedian first. So I traveled. I was in airplanes and airports. I didn't have time to hunt, or I never really fished. I enjoy people who do. I went camping maybe once a year. So I try and tell people I'm not 100% country, but I'm a little bit country-ish. It's kind of like my first comedy special. I called it Metro Jethro. I'm this weird mix of two worlds trying to get along with each other. But so it's not 100% country. It's country-ish.
Well, you definitely were branded. I drive a Ram 1500 right now, and every time I see the word on the side of it, because, you know, we tout that we have a Hemi right there on the truck. And I say it the exact same way that you said it, and everybody gets it. It's like as soon as I said it, I said, well, you know what, this has got in it, don't you? And then we all do it. And but that's actually surprising. I didn't know that about you. You know, Bubba and I have been down a similar path. I mean, we certainly were born and raised and reared in Alabama, and you can't get any more, you know, country than that. But, you know, we have some things that are typical to the stereotype, and then there's things, especially about Bubba, because he's high tech, that don't really fit the mode, and that's kind of what you're saying.
It's almost like 180 degrees out of phase.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You guys are country-ish, and I think there's levels of it. You know, some people are like 50% country, 50%-ish. Sometimes you're 80-20. It depends on, you know, where you're at. But I, like you, I have an education. I graduated from North Carolina State University. I've got a Mac computer right here, you know, but I do go camping with my friends, but I don't do anything. I just hang out with them.
So you're country-ish.
Yeah, you know.
I'm country-ish.
Yes, it's funny. You find your categories. Like for me, I hunt and fish, but I don't camp. You know, it's like I have no desire to camp. I'm an anti-campite, and
my idea of roughing it's anything smaller than a 25-inch color TV.
Yeah, it's like I like to be outdoors until it's time to go to bed. And
you guys would like glamping. Then you've heard of glamping, haven't
I have heard about that. I think that's more up our alley. But no, that's me.
Explain it a minute, John. Explain.
Yeah, I don't even mind sitting around this fire. But is it time to go to bed now?
I'm going in the house.
Where's the chalet? Where's the hotel room? You know.
So my friends have been going on this camping trip for the last 15, 20 years. I've only went twice, and it was like 2 weeks ago up in Galax, Virginia, right where that earthquake happened. It was a 5.1. And but before that, so they've been going for years. I'm 48 years old. I think it might be time for me to turn to the glamping side because having to bend down and get in the tent and get out of the tent, especially when you got to pee every 3 hours.
Exactly.
Right. It's tough.
You know, I need a tent that's I can stand up in, maybe with a little urinal in there, and some running water. I'm getting to the age where I might be glamping. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was convinced. My wife's convinced to this day that none of our sons stayed in scouting because of the camping. Because you have to go and do these certain campouts. She said, I think you're turning the kids against scouting because you don't want to camp. And I was like, no, there's enough to turn them against scouting without me talking about the uniform, for instance, you know, that kind of stuff. So when you get into the podcast that you do, what are we getting? I mean, when I go into this podcast, obviously if I'm a fan of your comedy, maybe I'm getting some stuff that I normally don't get in the stage show or the specials. It's a more personal deal. But what am I getting when I go into your podcast?
Well, we're a good produced podcast. My buddy who I went to high school with, his name is Alan Jackson, not the country singer. His name just happens to be Alan Jackson. And he's got a great studio here. It's well produced. We've got segments that we do. You know, there's always crazy news stories about small towns. Like the one we just did, a guy was driving a stolen vehicle and he got caught with a rattlesnake, a handgun, a bottle of whiskey, and uranium. That happened in Oklahoma. And so we show those videos. We talk about those stories. That's one segment called Small Town News. And now this one puts the ish in country ish. you know, I've done some acting in my day. I've been in some movies, some sitcoms, some commercials, and I still get residual checks sent to me in the mail. Screen Actors Guild.
There's one.
Residual checks.
Yeah, we got one of those this week.
Those just went out last week.
Yeah, we got one too.
We got one too.
Yeah.
Well, we play a game called How Much Is That Screen Actors Guild Residual Check.
Oh, that's good.
I make my friends on the show. I do this with my buddies from high school. I make them guess the amount. Whoever gets closest wins, but if they get it exactly right, I give them the check. And no one's ever got it right.
Yeah, we could play that game right now.
I'll tell you, I got to check it.
Wait a minute. We're going to get ours. We're going to get ours. We'll guess yours, and you guess ours. Okay. That's it.
So here's how I play it.
Okay.
I read you what it's for.
Okay.
And how it's airing.
Okay.
And then you try and guess the amount. Okay.
All right. We'll wait for Bubba to get back because he's run to get ours, and then you're going to guess ours, and we have to tell you, because it really helps to know what it's for. You know,
it does.
And
there's many different ways that it can air, like if it's free TV, cable TV, if it's internet rental or whatever.
I had a real down. Yeah, I had a real down moment this week. My oldest son is an actor. And he got his residual check, and I was kind of, thinking I got mine from some stuff we've been in, and he owned me. His was so much more than mine. I mean, it wasn't even close. And I thought, well, that's a bad moment. So all right, here we go. All right, so here comes Bubba.
And they can be like, so when I play this one, I don't open it yet, so I don't even know what it is when I play the game.
So we'll guess yours first. Tell us what we're dealing with. All right, let's see if we can get it.
You got it. This is for one episode of Jane the Virgin that I did.
Okay. This is funny. We actually were watching that not too long ago.
That's hilarious. Okay, all right, go ahead. So we guess one episode, and this is your residual check. I'm trying to think how long that show's been out, what kind of deal you might have cut.
And this was a while back, by the way. This was about 3 years ago.
All right, that's important to know. All right, so it's one check.
It's just for the internet rental side.
Okay, that helps too. I'm going to say that check is for $61.
I'm going to go a little bit more. I'm going to say $131.12.
That's good, Bubba.
Yeah, it's good to put the change on there.
Yeah.
What I've always found out is, for whatever reason, there are odd numbers in the change department.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
I don't know.
Hey, round it, boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what was it, John?
So this is funny because this is the second check in a week that I've gotten from this exact episode. And the one I got before it was exactly $61 and something.
Oh, my gosh.
But this one that I have in my hand is not that. It is $9.07.
Gosh, I got the last one right. I would have been right on it if it had been that last one.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
It is.
$9. Yeah, there it is.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm feeling a little bit better.
Okay,
right
$9
now at this moment. Okay. All
right, so John.
Here you go. Okay.
But if I'd have had the check before, I'd have had $61 on the nose.
Yeah, and I would have had to have signed the check over to you.
Doggone it! All right, here comes ours.
All right, John. Here's the envelope. Same envelope. Okay. SAG. What does all this stand for? What is this?
Who knows?
Screen Actors Guild, and then after is the Actor Federation, and I forgot the TRA.
Yeah, something artist and something. All right, John. This is for free TV, free over-the-air TV. For our appearance in the movie, I Can Only Imagine.
Okay.
I can only imagine. Now, I don't know how we'll need to scale this. I got one check. You got one check.
You have to guess just is it the same amount?
Yes, the same amount.
Okay, you got to just check just the amount on either check.
Right.
Okay. The one amount. So over the air, I can only imagine.
Now, John, they list free TV over the air, internet free, internet rental, pay TV, electronic sale.
So it's all that. It's all
and
that.
Video, DVD, but all of those columns have zero. The only one that has money in it is free TV.
And to let you know, our appearance on this was basically us on the air talking about the song. We were not prominent in the movie.
We played DJs.
Okay. All right.
Right.
All right.
How old is this movie?
I can only imagine is 2 years old.
Probably, 2 or 3 years old. Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
So you've already gotten other checks for this.
Correct.
This one is 2 years later. Okay. And you both have two different checks and they're the same amount.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, all right. I'm going to say it is that check is $101.13.
Okay, all right, not bad.
Now keep in mind he's comparing that to his $9.
I know, but
that's Jon Reep.
I know.
John, it's not that good, but we did top your check barely. If you see the amount here, it is for.
Wait, let me get another guess just for fun.
Okay.
Okay, that check is for $53.17.
It is for $16.23.
$16. So we can't even. Bubba and I can't even eat lunch on that. I mean, the two of us together can't eat lunch on that.
No, Rick, all three of us together can't eat lunch. Okay.
Jon Reep is our
and
guest.
that's how you play the game. We just did a smash cast of the game. We actually have an opening that we play where I make everybody say it with me, and there's like game music behind it where we go, how much is that Screen Actors Guild residual check?
Oh my goodness, we go that far with it.
Yeah, it's the longest title of any podcast game show.
We're talking with Jon Reep on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. We will continue more about his podcast and also just the state of the world right now as the Rick and Bubba University podcast continues. So, Tommy John, Bubba, you and I, you know what? And there's been a number of people emailing me about this. They're saying, okay, when did men start caring about their underwear? And I said, well, I'll tell you when we started caring about it. It's when Tommy John sent us some of their underwear, and we put on that cool cotton, and we said, hey, you know what? Everybody can breathe.
Well, Rick, there was such a difference. That's when we started caring. I mean, before then, nobody cared because there wasn't a difference. But hey, this is a game changer.
Yeah, and now they're doing, men and women. There's breathable underwear, and for the women, the bras, and it comes with this cool cotton. And with the summer heat upon us, if you need to cool things off a little bit, Tommy John's cotton underwear is the way to go. The layers are built for next level comfort. Look, if you're, maybe you're like us, you're looking for some lounge pants. They got those. Now this is something Bubba and I would never select, but some of you might. Lazy day joggers. We also have the softest Zoom ready tees and polos. That's back to us. You're sitting around binging the Rick and Bubba show. Tommy John has you covered. You can upgrade to Tommy John today with enhanced designs that are super breathable, way more comfortable than anything else out there. You know what they say? It's the best pair you ever wear, or it's free guarantee. Tommy John, no adjustment needed. Go to TommyJohn.com/RickBubba. Now that's going to get you 20% off. TommyJohn-RickBubba, 20% off. TommyJohn.com/RickBubba. Jon Reep is our guest on Rick and Bubba University. So, John, we've been going over some of the things you do on the show. We did how much is that Screen Actors Guild residual check? Is that it? Did I get it all?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, perfect.
We talked about small town news. What in the world is Goodwill hunting? What is that?
Thank you. Okay, so one of my buddies on the show is a high school friend of mine named Mark Hunt.
Okay.
And he recently got divorced. He's a little bit down on his luck. He shops at a Goodwill from time to time.
Does he
As some
really?
of us do.
Yeah.
It's a great store. You get some great deals in there. And so we made a segment out of that. I'll go to a Goodwill, and he'll go to a Goodwill separately. We buy each other gifts for $5 or less, and we exchange it or unbox it on the show, but it has to make sense as to why we got it. You can't just pick. It's got to mean. It has to mean something.
Yeah, there's meaning behind it.
Yeah, okay.
A story behind it.
Yeah, and then y'all just we find out what you two went out and got, right?
Exactly. So I mean, and people send us stuff in the mail too. We did a story. I don't know if you can see this thing.
I see it. Yeah, see it. It's a
Have
guy.
do you know what this is?
It looks like that thing that the Japanese restaurant
it's a little peeing guy,
shoots the
isn't it?
water on you.
Yeah, it's they call it a wee doll.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never heard of this, but there was a story we did. This lady sued a hibachi grill because the guy.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then because of that, people send us this stuff in the mail. So, and they made it look like me. They put an orange beard on it.
That's a ginger beard if I've ever seen one. It really is.
Yeah. So Goodwill hunting is fun. We exchange gifts. So Mark knows that I like Stryper, the band Stryper.
Right.
Yeah.
You remember those guys?
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. They had a little comeback recently.
They have. I actually had them zoom in on my podcast after we did this Goodwill hunting thing. It kind of fed itself. It was crazy. So he goes out, he finds a Stryper t-shirt at a Goodwill, and he gives it to me on the show. I'm loving it. I'm talking about how much I love Stryper. And then Stryper sees it. Michael Sweet, sees it.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, well, I want to be on the show. And then I had him on the show. It was crazy.
This time that we're living in, John, I mean, like we'll get things like, we'll have people that will, like I had this happen like in Australia. This is the things we're talking about. So a guy in Australia is a fan of Frank Caliendo. So he goes on YouTube, he looks for Frank Caliendo videos, and he finds one with him on the show with us. He then takes that and says, well, who are these people? And then goes to the Rick and Bubba YouTube channel. Then from the Rick and Bubba YouTube channel, he then finds out all this other stuff. And then we pick up a listener out of Australia, and I thought the technology today, it literally can go anywhere, anytime, and I think it's exciting. Now it's complicated to try to figure out because there's a lot of confusion on how do you let people know you're out there. But the way people binge and search now, it's amazing. Like that, you just gave a perfect example. I mean, Michael Sweet figures out you like Striper from you talking about a T-shirt on your podcast.
It's crazy, and you're right. It's funny you said Australia because the Alan Jackson, he's on top of all of our numbers and where we're trending and that kind of stuff. We picked up some new listeners in Papua New Guinea.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, where is Papua New Guinea? It's like a little bit north of Australia. I'm like, this is great.
Sounds like another game on the show.
And Papua
Where
New
is
Guinea,
that listener?
In Papua New Guinea, they actually refer to Jon Reep. I already knew this as the ginger giant.
Yeah, sure. A lot of people don't know that.
Right. You guys did your research.
We did. Tell me we don't know how to do an interview. But looking at some of the other stuff you do, John's Journal, what is this? Is this you come up with a topic that you?
Okay, I moved back home about 2 years ago. I was living in LA for 18 years, way too long.
Yes.
And I was finally ready to abort ship like everyone else is doing now.
I was about to say, you were ahead of your time.
Best decision I've made in a long time. Got out pretty quick. I made money selling my condo. I moved back home just because I really missed my family. I wanted to be around them. And then, so I'm staying with my parents for a little while. My idea was to stay there for a minute and then get me a house somewhere on Lake Hickory. I've always wanted to be on water.
And what lake? What's it called again? Lake what?
Lake Hickory. Lake Hickory.
Hickory.
Right. There it is. It's back there.
Yeah, no one says Hickory like Jon Reep says it.
Yeah. No, it's great. I was going to get a lake house, and then my dad has a stroke on Thanksgiving Day.
Sorry.
And I'm like, okay, well, we have to take care of this situation now. He's alive. He's in a skilled nursing facility real close to our house. Long story short, I had to move back home. I cannot tell people that I am a comedian anymore. I can tell them I'm an elder care Uber driver because that is all I do is drive my mom either to a doctor's appointment, a skilled nursing facility, to a pharmacy, to go see dad, all this stuff. And I do on this podcast. But when I moved back home, to answer your question, I had to move a bunch of boxes around, and I found my old high school journal.
Oh, Bill Bubba Bussy.
Oh,
Jon Reep's high school journal? Oh, my goodness. John's journal from high school.
Yeah. So these are my thoughts when I was 17, 18. It's 2 years worth.
That's so good.
And I'm not the kind of guy who would have kept a diary or a journal. It only happened because our English teacher made us do it. And most of this is about girls getting my heart broke and football.
Well, that's pretty much
good ones in here.
That's pretty much the world at that age.
I got to tell you, at that age, that's the world, no doubt.
Yeah. So there's some good nuggets in here. I'll read this on the podcast, and then let my friends make fun of me. And then also I found we've lumped this into the John's Journal too. I went to Russia in 1990, my senior year of high school. I went to Russia for 3 weeks. It was this mission founded by Dwight D. Eisenhower in the 1940s called People to People. And the whole idea was the youth of America goes to other countries to promote world peace. That's all it was. But I had a great time. It was before communism fell. And I met some friends over there, and I met some pen pals. And I also found these old letters from Russia.
Oh, Russia.
Unbelievable.
Mother Russia.
And I read them, and I answer her. I'm actually trying to find this girl, Natalie, right now. I got my Facebook fans looking for her, too. And so that's part of Jon's journal. Anything that I wrote or got in the mail in 1989 and 90.
So y'all were good friends?
Yeah, I mean, is this a lost love, Jon? What are we doing?
It wasn't
here?
a love. It was just back before the internet.
Right.
Having a pen pal in another country was a cool thing because. Yeah. Especially if you're in Russia and you hear about how great America is before communism fell, it was like they wanted bubble gum and blue jeans and freedom.
Yeah, magazines.
Yeah, my sister did the exact same thing in high school. No shocker to you, my brother and I were not allowed to do it. But she was from our high school, and she's about 10 years younger than me. And she said the same thing. She said our blue jeans and our shoes were the obsession. Because she also went before the Soviet Union fell. And she said the shoes, you could they would try to buy them off your feet.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was crazy. But I wasn't, just so you know, I wasn't selected to go. My brother made good grades. He got selected to go. And if you get selected, you're allowed to bring one friend.
Oh, okay. So you got in on the friend card, +1.
Yeah, Jon, I'm glad you took the time to tell me that. My mind had already gone there. I thought, no way. No way Jon went straight up. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, I never even remotely had that thought. I appreciate you taking the time to explain it. But
I want to make sure your listeners didn't think I was all highfalutin and educated or anything.
And then, of course, the Member Me, what do y'all do there?
Member Me, this is great. We just started doing this one.
Just brand new?
This is my high school yearbook.
Please look. Did that say Roaring Tigers? Is that what it says?
Oh, yeah. We were the Roaring Tigers roaring into the 90s.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
And so you know how back in the day you would write in someone's yearbook, and then sometimes you'd put a phone number, and you'd say something like, "Never forget, don't be a stranger, call me anytime." And so that's what we're doing.
That's great.
I read what people wrote in my yearbook, and if there's a phone number, I just cold call them. And I say, well, you told me to call anytime.
That's fantastic. What a great idea. Have you got people that have actually answered and are in the numbers still good?
Yes, it's weird because these are landlines.
Yeah.
Before cell phones.
Sure.
Not many people kept their landlines, but some did. And we've had ones that I had to cut out of the show because, lady kind of got mad.
Right. Yeah. Well, back when we first started radio, and you remember this because we all listened to these recordings everywhere, there was a time before the FCC said no more of this. You could cold call people on your show.
Put them on the air live.
Put them on the air live and record whatever happened. And I got to tell you something, it was solid gold until the FCC said you cannot do that anymore. And
you have to tell them you're on the air.
And you remember, we used to just remember thinking that when like some guy at school would have a cassette tape of the radio show calling people, and are these guys that did nothing but call people and record it. But you can't do it anymore. By the time you said, oh, by the way, you're on the air, is it okay if we put you on the air? Do you mind if Rick and Bubba make fun of you in front of all these people?
And act like they're somebody they're not?
Yeah, and they're going to pretend to be the taxidermist, but they really aren't. It kind of ruins the whole bit.
Yeah. Oh, this was crazy. Like the one I called, it was pleasant. It was like, as you can see, I'll show you real quickly. See how all that pink handwriting right there?
Oh, yeah.
She took up a whole page. This was a girl that I dated in high school.
Yeah.
And it says right here, I love you always. Use this anytime. Don't forget me. Please, please, please. Wow. And I thought, well, let's call her up.
Yeah.
And I called her up. And, of course, it's her parents' house. She doesn't live there.
Right.
And I talked to her mom. And it was a pleasant conversation for about 7 minutes.
Uh-oh.
And then I said somewhere at the end, and she bragged about how her daughter just got a PhD and how the kids are doing well in soccer and baseball and all this stuff. And she's like, I've been keeping up with your career and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, I go, well, this is great. I use this on my podcast. It's a segment we call Member Me. And I'm going to put this on my podcast. And she went, what? What? And then she just hung up the phone. I'm like, well, that was weird. And then the Facebook messages start coming in from everybody in her family. And they were like, they got all lawyer talk on me. Like, you do not have the permission to air this. She did not give you permission. I'm like, you don't understand. I wasn't even playing a joke. I was simply catching up with her.
Right. What was negative about it? Some
people are so private.
What was negative about that? I guess now.
Nothing negative about it, but I found out later that she was getting ready to have a surgery, and she freaked out and had to get rushed to the emergency room because she thought I was going to air this over nothing. But these people are crazy, I found out. There's a reason why I broke up with her 30 years ago.
Right. Jon Reep is our guest on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. We'll come back. We'll talk about, the state of the country trying to do comedy in today's environment. When we come back, more with Jon Reep coming up on the Rick and Bubba University podcast. ExpressVPN. All right, let's talk about this, Bubba. Instead of letting social media sites revoke your right to free speech, and how about revoking their right to your data?
That's right.
I mean, because a lot of times you go out there and say, look, this is I want to look at what I want to do. I want to be on this over here. These are my political leanings, or, whatever I prefer. And a lot of times people try to stand in the way because they monitor everything you're doing online. But that's not going to happen if you use ExpressVPN. That's why we love that. You ever wondered how free to access sites like Facebook make all their money? Well, by tracking your searches, your video history, everything you click on, and then they'll sell your valuable data. But when you use ExpressVPN, you're now anonymous, and your online presence is hidden. And it also, that means that IP address that's yours, they can't see it. That makes your activity more difficult to trace and to sell to advertisers. And ExpressVPN couldn't be any easier to set up, which means we can actually do it. You tap one button on your phone or your computer, and you're protected. The other's a different product. ExpressVPN encrypts 100% of your data to protect you also from hackers. You don't want that either. There's some bad people on the internet. Let's just call it. There's some bad people out there.
Especially if they're trying to get that other thing.
Right. Jon Reep may be trying to put you on his podcast. So go to expressvpn.com/RickBubba. You'll get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN service for free. Again, that's expressvpn.com/RickBubba, and protect your data today.
John, tell us about the cancel culture and how it is affecting comedy out there. We've heard some horror stories. People don't seem to have much of a sense of humor right now. A lot of them look to be more offended.
Yeah,
this is true. I've had, since COVID, since this pandemic and everything else, I've had one gig since March, and everything else has been canceled, or they're saying rescheduled, but we don't have a date reset.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of things are being rescheduled. I did a gig in Tampa, flew there, came back, and it was scary because I hadn't done it in a while. But it's when the news is like overrun with pandemic, Black Lives Matter, all this crazy political correctness that's going on. It's kind of like the gorilla, the white elephant in the room. Like, you got to say something about it. And I'm not that kind of comedian. I've always made fun of myself. I've always talked about my hometown of Hickory. I've always talked about how crazy my dad was in my family life. So I guess I kind of dodged a bullet on that, because by the time people come to see me, I think they're done with it, and they know that I'm not that guy. I had a couple of jokes about COVID when I was in Tampa, but that's about it. People just wanted things to go back to normal.
Right.
So I'm lucky in that sense when it comes to cancel culture. I don't really do anything that offends anybody. I do talk about being a blue-eyed ginger, which is pretty rare. That combination's the rarest there is. This is why I found out because of the internet. People like to tell you about you, They're like, did you know this about your people? You're like 1% of the world's population.
Right.
I'm like, oh, great. I don't care. It means nothing to me. But I was worried about the pandemic, and I was worried about other people's safety. I do live with my mother. She's 72 years old. She's the kind of person that I could really harm if she were to get it.
No doubt.
And I have merchandise that I sell.
Of
and
course.
The guy who makes my merchandise said, why don't you make a mask that you could sell at the end of your shows?
Yeah,
I said, well, that's great. Let's make one of my face. And this is it right here.
So you can.
How funny
is it, and the teeth are perfect. I mean, that
is so funny.
There it is.
Yeah, I did make it a little wider than my real teeth. And,
I see that.
The problem with this mask is the guy who made it. Like, it's way too zoomed in.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
my mouth is gigantic.
But that's what's perfect about it, John.
That's
perfect.
It makes it even better. But you know,
and my nose is way too. I look like the orangutan from Every Which Way But Loose.
I didn't want to say that, but I'm glad you did. Clyde, left-hand turn. That's it right there. But you know,
it's you
Ricky
see
looks like
you
Mark
see me with
Garnett
this
with that
mask on. People see this and right away they start laughing. These sold great. And if you don't want to have a stupid face on, you do it backwards and you got just a regular white mask.
Yeah,
but then you're kissing.
To answer your question about cancel culture, I really don't do much to cross that line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's kind of to me what's scary about it, because you don't. But who knows what will be offensive?
Right. That's the problem.
5 years from now or 10 years from now, and then things that, like we're saying today, can be brought back up, and you're in trouble. And you go, "But wait, that wasn't a bad thing back then."
Yeah, think about how many comedians right now, if we reran their special, they would be canceled.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's crazy.
Think about the movies.
Some of the old jokes I've done that are out there, that I'd be like, oh, I might get in trouble if that came out. I actually have so a friend of mine posted a picture of him welding or something, and he did this. He goes like, everything is going to be okay,
right? And
then that's all that means is okay,
right?
And then someone goes like, oh, I didn't know he was all about the white power.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, this meant white power, and I have no idea. I didn't sign off on that. This just means okay to me.
That's right.
Or John, try being from a university like us that had a mascot of the Gamecock. Yeah. I mean, that's what they do. That's their sign, you know.
And that's the point I think Bubba's making, that we have to. And I'm like you. There comes a point where you go, look, let the chips fall where they may. But you could sit down and literally say, I'm being very careful about everything that I do. Jon Reep, this is my act. I think my act is, there's really nothing the cancel culture can get. And then all of a sudden the cancel culture says, oh, wait a minute, Jon Reep. We now declare fill in the blank. We now declare this part of your act to be cancel worthy. I mean, it's a moving target. You really never know.
That's what's so scary about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I hate it. That's why I'm hoping that this podcast will take off and I can build my own little pirate ship and do what the hell I want.
No, you're right.
But, it is scary to be judged by morals that have not come around yet. The morals of 10 years from now, I have no idea what they're going to be. And, John, what was funny, because we're kids of the 80s, I was showing my kids some movies that we grew up with, that I was telling them how funny it was. And of course, it's been a while and I forgot. It's not as funny as I thought it was.
Well, but, right.
But you're looking at this and, man, hey, political correctness was not a problem in the 80s.
No.
And my kids were aghast, and I said, guys, really, nobody cared in the 80s. Everybody knew your deal, and everybody got along. Nobody was really hateful about it. We just kind of, everybody was enjoying the economy, unlike today.
Right.
Yep. Well, there's so many movies that could not be made now. Me and the Alan Jackson were just talking about this. That movie, Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Could you imagine? Like, because these guys break into a sorority, do a panty raid, install cameras in their place so they can watch them take showers.
Yeah, see, that was funny then. Now it's all different,
No, let me tell you. Well, I mean, can you imagine?
Weird Science. We saw that. I was like, wow. The language.
You're gonna build your own girl. Yeah. I told Alan this the other day. Like, that was, as a teenage kid, that was great, right? And there's nothing better than Weird Science. The fact that you could make your own girl, but they screwed up when they made her give her the brain of Einstein. I know.
Yeah, you're right. Now every advantage we had is now over. But let's look at this. What if I sat down? I want y'all just to try to imagine this. I sat down right now, and you're coming in and say, hey, Mr. Burgess, glad to meet you. I understand you have a script you'd like for us to look at. Yeah, I've got a screenplay I'd like for y'all to consider. It's called Blazing Saddles.
Oh,
and I start handing it out. I mean, people.
That was semi-uncomfortable then, Rick.
I think people would internally combust if you were to lay that screenplay down and that script in front of anybody today.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so many movies from the 80s that were they're innocent, and they were innocent. It was a different time, and now there's no way that they could be made.
Yeah, let me give you another example. Trading Places.
Yep.
It was a breakout movie for Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the funniest movies I had seen at the time. We watched it the other day, and I was aghast. at what was being said. And, and you're like, wow, it's changed.
Well, yeah, because it feels weird. And I'm not saying that change sometimes isn't good.
Right.
Because it is. But then when we get to the point that it's like, now I think we're at the point where somebody says, I'm not offended by anything yet, so I'm going to invent something. Now that we don't want. When did we all want to be offended? It's almost like people wake up and say.
It's a sport now.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said about Remember Me. I mean, when did we decide we wanted to make something up that I'm suddenly a victim, and everybody says, nothing about this makes you a victim?
Right, and it's so hard, you're right, to try and sell something. I've been trying to sell my own TV show ideas for 20 years, and I'll submit something and go, well, that's all well and good, but there's no diversity. You got to switch this. You got to put this in here. And I go, but this is how I grew up. This is what it was. This is the story I'm trying to tell. And then by the time that they put all the things in there that they think need to happen and make up, I'm like, well, that has nothing to do with the story that I wanted to
exactly.
It don't even look like it anymore.
Do you think, I mean, as we're recording this podcast, I'm going to make an attempt to do a men's conference coming up this weekend. Of course, they social distance, and the numbers usually are about 5,000 to 8,000. Now it's going to be like 1,300 and spread out. Football's attempting to say 20% of the arena. So how do you see that for the stand-up comedian? I mean, are we ever going to get back to I'm heading out to the local theater or to a comedy club to see Jon Reep?
Are you going to have to just be skilled at podcast and doing videos to post online?
I am trying to make a little pivot in my career. I was wanting to do this anyway because I'm getting tired of traveling. And I do miss my family, and I do want to take care of my mom and be there. Sure. For all that stuff. So if I can make the same amount of money what I was doing stand up doing this, that's going to be a win for me, but that'll take a while. Stand up, now this pandemic's going on. I've had to cancel some gigs because they're only open at 20% capacity, 30% capacity. Yeah. And there's no way that the club can make money or I can make money doing that. Right. Tonight, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be a part of a show that's outdoors at a baseball, the minor league baseball team, the Hickory Crawdads, are doing like a drive-in show. People are going to come to their cars. There's going to be a stage. Yeah. And I did one with Bert Kreischer, and that's weird. I'll do it. I didn't like it because people are in their cars. You can't see their faces. There's horns. There's too many distractions. It's just really bizarre. And I'm afraid of what comedy is going to look like when this is over. I know there's going to be a lot of comedy clubs that won't recover from this.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah. I started thinking about somebody told me, told me StubHub is basically out of business. I mean, they might have two people at the office now. I mean, what are they going to sell tickets to? I mean, there's
goat roping.
Yeah. And even if they start selling it to football again, now there's only 20% of the stadium. How many tickets are even going to be available to StubHub?
Well, maybe they'll go at a higher price. That way they make their money up. John, that's what you need to do. You need to welcome everybody to the show and tell them that their ticket price is now 5 times what they paid because you got to make up the difference.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because you need this whole table. You need 6 feet around you. You're going to have to pay for that 6-foot radius.
That's right. Yeah. You're paying for the footage.
And we're getting close to the end here, but in my opinion, stand-up is not designed for outside. When you go out to a field, I mean, bands can do that, but a comedian, now there's people, like you said, they're going to be sitting in cars. You're outside. That outside environment for stand-up comedy feels so weird anyway. Yeah, and I know even the biggest of the big, I heard Jim Gaffigan is trying to do these drive-in deals. So, like you said, what's the future?
A lot of people are trying to do it because it's like, well, what else can you do? And it's not good for comedians that you have to listen to every word, where you're hanging on every word, where there's a setup and a punchline. It might be okay for guys like me. I'm kind of a storyteller, and I'm physical, and I move around and I make faces, and that might be okay. Still, there's nothing like a packed comedy club where the only focus is on the guy on stage. And I agree with you. That's where stand-up belongs. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard for everybody.
It just hit me because things are different now. I finally have a chance to book Jon Reep for my birthday.
When is it, buddy? I'll be there.
Well, it was in March, but there's always next year.
Oh, John, thanks for taking time to be with us, man. If you have not heard Jon Reep's podcast, now's the time to do it. Countryishpodcast.com, and that's country with ISH podcast.com. And, of course, I'm sure it's available wherever you get all the other podcasts.
Yes, sir.
So grab that. And, John, thank you.
So good to see you, brother.
Taking time to be with us, man.
Hey, you two guys, thanks for what you do. And when this is all over, I can't wait to come back in there.
Well, we look forward to that very much. And thanks to all of you for being with us on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.